Hello, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Go ahead and put your questions in the comments now. I'm monitoring the comments to be able to answer any questions that come in. I also have a good topic for you today. I'm going to be talking about the green card interview. So I'm going to be speaking in general terms and giving you examples of questions that you should be expecting. But the questions that you should be expecting at your green card interview is going to differ based on what type of green card you're applying for. Because even though you're getting permanent residence at the end of the day, that leads to your right to live in the United States for 10 years. For conditional green cards, it's 2 years until you get the 10-year. On your way to the green card, you have to prove that you qualify for the green card in some way. And there are different ways to qualify for the green card. You can qualify through an employer. You can qualify through family members, certain family members. You can qualify through humanitarian means. So, for example, if you've been the victim of trafficking, if you've been the victim of a crime, if you have been, you've received asylum, then after you've received those benefits, you do have that option to pursue permanent residence as well. So that's what I mean by humanitarian means to obtain permanent residence. There's VAWA. If you can't apply through a relative because they're mistreating you and you have to apply on your own, it's called VAWA. And there's a green card for that as well. And so, as you can see, the situations are different in each case. And so the questions are going to differ based on the different scenarios. So, the number one thing you should be doing before the interview to prepare for your interview is to review your application packet thoroughly. Now, the unfortunate thing I hear oftentimes is when individuals call me because they have a situation, they have a complication, and now they're trying to get representation to complete their immigration process. I often ask them, do they have a copy of their application packet, the entire everything they sent to immigration? Do they have a copy of what they submitted? And more times than not, the answer will be no, I don't have a copy. And that's one word of advice is always make sure that you or your attorney, I as the attorney, I always retain an exact copy of what I submitted. So you or your attorney should always make sure you retain every single copy of the version of whatever you sent to them. If you've sent a letter in, keep a copy of it. When you put the entire packet together, keep and yes, it's 200 to 300 pages that I often prepare for my clients when I'm submitting application packets. And yes, I retain a scanned copy of every single page of what I submit with the application. The reason it's so important is if they claim that you didn't submit something, you can always refer back to what you have to determine whether that's true and to be able to show that it's on their error. They may be lost evidence. This may be valuable in situations where there's a deadline that you missed and maybe they're trying to deny you based on that deadline. So that's one thing. But it's also important to keep a copy of everything you sent in for purposes of preparing for your green card interview, because the officer is going to go through your application. When I've gone to green card interviews with my clients, sometimes the officer will go through the application line by line to make sure that you know what's in your application, that everything in your application is true and consistent. So they will go through your address history. They will ask you about your employment history. They will go line by line and ask you about your past, your immigration, if you've had any criminal records, If there are other aspects of your background that could affect your eligibility, they're going to go line by line through that application. So you want to make sure that you go line by line through your application to know to make sure you know everything that's in your application. So you don't blank in the office with the officer, which can raise more red flags for the officer if you don't know what's in your own application. So make sure you review. Now, as for the specific questions, when the officer brings you into their office, it's an office, it looks like a regular person's office. Most times, there's going to be the officer on one side, and then you and your attorney is going to be on the other side of the desk, or your spouse if it's marriage based. The officer will ask you for your identification. They're going to swear you in, where you're going to swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. This is very important. Don't take this lightly. Don't do anything that's going to come across as misleading the officer, omitting important information intentionally, or telling a straight up lie. Because when you are in that office and everything you're saying is under oath, which means that yes, this can lead to not only misrepresentation and fraud under immigration, but if they really want to, they can also pursue it under penalty of perjury, right? Because it is you are saying an oath to tell the truth, right? So don't take this lightly. Don't think that it's just a personal situation where you're just answering questions in a casual manner. It may feel like a casual setting, but it is not. You should do not take that oath lightly. So once you get past that, the officer jumps straight into evaluating your application. Sometimes the officer has already, after reviewing your application, the officer has already honed into specific questions that they want to ask you. So sometimes if they have questions about, if this is employment based, for example, they have questions about your qualifications for the job, making sure that your qualifications are truthfully stated in your application. And of course, that's going to depend on what type of qualifications you have. Is this a national interest waiver where you have shown exceptional ability or an advanced degree and shown your experience in a particular field? The officer can hone into that to ask you about your experience, ask you what you've done, go through your evidence. So they can go line by line, go through your employment history, go through your years of experience, go through your achievements. When it comes on to family based, sometimes now they are waiving interviews, by the way, trying to make things move faster. No, an interview doesn't mean that everything is going south. It does not mean that things are going wrong, but it may mean that they have questions, right? So if you have the interview and this is marriage based, the officer is going to jump into questions about your relationship. They're going to, some of the most common questions I get are, really typical. How did you meet? Right? What do you like to do together? What did you do for your last anniversary? They will ask you about your children. They'll ask you about where you got married, if you know each other's parents, because, and that's also in the application, is they will ask, so they will say you're the immigrant, they'll ask your citizen or resident spouse who your parents are, right? And have you ever met the parents? And in some cases, it's not, marriages or families aren't perfect. You may not have met the family because maybe there's a rift in the family, and it's okay to state the truth. Don't try to pretend that everything is perfect or try to give pretentious questions. What I do for my clients is when we get to the point where the interview is scheduled, because I represent my clients, I hold their hands from the beginning of the process all the way to the end. So when it comes down to preparing for the interview, even though, yes, I do attend my clients' interviews when they need me there, I also go through a mock interview with my clients to ask them these questions. So I am the officer, my clients are the immigrant, and so go through the application. I ask them questions, and I also focus on hard aspects of the process. They may have a background that may affect their eligibility, and so it comes down to the interview. And so we talk about tackling those very difficult questions when it comes down to past immigration violations, like fraud or misrepresentation or a past arrest. And so we touch on those anticipated difficult aspects of the interview that may come up. Another difficult thing in marriage based processes would be tackling the questions about previous spouses and past immigration applications or denials. There may be multiple. For example, the immigrant or the citizen may have had previous filings or previous applications filed on their behalf. And this sometimes can raise red flags for the officers to evaluate whether this is in some way fraud, for example, marriage fraud. And so we focus on just tackling difficult questions that may raise red flags in this case. Um, no, so make sure that when you're preparing for the application, make sure that you have a good memory. Go back through your timeline. Make sure you have a good memory of your resume, what your achievements are. Make sure if it's family based, make sure you have a good timeline on your marriage. Especially the marriage. It's easier with a parent-child relationship just because they're your parent. They've known you all their life, so it's not that difficult. Unless there are other aspects of their background or the application process. For example, if it's harder to prove the parent-child relationship, then those would have to tackle at the interview. But with the marriage base, when it comes on to timelines, they can get into a lot of detail with you, and you want to make sure that and sometimes they can separate you. So it's one thing when you yourself, the interview depends on you. You go into your interview and it's all about your qualifications, right? It's another thing though when it's not only you going into the interview, but your spouse is going into the interview. And when that is the case, you and your spouse have to depend on each other to make sure that you're consistent, that you're on the same side, and that you look out for each other in that way. So don't go freestyling it. I've seen real couples in real marriages go into these interviews thinking they had it in the box when they really did not. Right? They said, "How hard could this be? We're married," and then they go in, and it turns into a whole mess. Things that raise red flags would be like I spoke to someone in a consultation who my first question to this citizen was, "When did you guys get married?" And his answer was, he's not good. He doesn't remember, somewhere a year ago. He's not good with birthdays and dates. Taking this serious. You may not be taking this serious because it's fraud. It's a fake marriage, right? So you don't care to know about birthdays or dates. You don't place a lot of emphasis on knowing that information because at the end of the day, it's all not real. That's the kind of red flag that can come up. So when this individual said to me, when I asked, "When did you get married?" and he's telling me he doesn't even remember and he's not good with that stuff, that was a piece of advice I even gave to him, is that this is something you can't go into an interview and say, right? So make sure that you're both on the same page in regards to dates, Um, when did you get married? Important dates. When did you get married? When is your birthday? Make sure you both know your birthdays. Make sure you know your children's birthdays. Make sure you know your stepchildren's birthdays. Make sure you know even the parents' birthdays, because these are very important for the officer. When they ask these questions, they're checking to see how many you're getting right, and if they can turn around and say you got more questions wrong than you did right and hold it against you. So don't take this lightly, and don't take your memory for granted. Don't think that you both are on the same page. Talk through everything. I do provide, if you go to the link in the profile on Instagram and also the link in the description of this video, you will see that I do provide an interview guide, with some sample questions. So you can go ahead and go in there, look at some of those questions, just download it, go ahead, look at those questions. And if you are at that stage right now, even though I'm not your attorney and I'm not representing you, if you don't already have an attorney and you are just about ready to go into that interview, you can always look at those sample questions and just get prepared for your interview. So now, after the interview, the officer will sometimes they show a game face, sometimes they will tell you what to expect next. Whether usually, if they're going to approve you, it's going to be a quick approval. Usually a day at most. Even though if they let you out of the office, they're going to tell you they can take up to 4 months. Usually, it's going to take longer if there's something that they're looking into. If this turns into where they're doing a more detailed review, then in that case, they could take longer, and they may even issue a notice, a request for evidence, or a notice of intent to deny. But the decision usually comes at least a month after. But I've seen in really solid cases where my clients have done well in the interview. We usually get the decision the next day, right? It doesn't mean that if that didn't happen for you, something is going terribly wrong. But that's a pattern I've seen lately, is that we do get a decision very quickly, as long as there are no complications or doubts in the process and the interview went well. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and answer questions quickly. Put your questions in the comments and I will answer your questions. How do I contact you? Go to the link in the profile. Everything that you need is there. If you want different ways to contact me, go to the website. Click on the link that says to the website. Click on that link. You'll see the phone number, the contact form. You'll see online chat, and you'll see the contact form to actually schedule your own appointment, all on the website. Then there's a button to schedule your own appointment. You can go ahead and do that, and it walks you through a very easy form to get on my schedule and to confirm your appointment. And then if you want to join my email list, that's how I also keep in touch with subscribers, to give you good information, to give you immigration updates. So if you want to go ahead and subscribe, you can always so you can get the Greencard interview guide, which can help you, give you some good information. You can click on that and then subscribe to the newsletter as well. So different ways to get in touch and keep in touch with me. All right. Let's see. Any more questions? Can an adult daughter who have citizenship adjust status for a parent over 60? Absolutely. As long as the adult daughter is age 21 and over, they can do that for the parent. Now, keep in mind though, that if the parent enter the country without permission, without inspection, there's going to be a different process. It won't be adjustment of status unless it's VAWA. Um, So it depends on how they entered. But as long as they entered the country legally with a visa, even if they overstayed, at that point they can do adjustment of status through the adult citizen son or daughter. If I want to do a consultation, would I speak with you? Absolutely. So I do all my consultations and the form. If you want to go ahead and schedule your own appointment, you can do that, and you can get directly onto my schedule to be able to speak with me directly. So a person who has a business in Maryland, how does he invite someone from Pakistan? So it's not that simple. If they want to hire you, recruit you to work for the business, then it's going to be through the employment based process. And there are different requirements. The most common one is to file for labor certification. And then after the labor certification is approved, you can file the petition, and then you go through the immigration process that way. How long does VAWA take? So VAWA, the entire process from beginning to green card takes about 2.5 years. Now, the benefits of VAWA is that you do get a work permit, you get your social security number, your travel document to be able to keep you stable and keep you in a comfortable situation until all of that comes through. And it is your process. I got an RFE days after I did my biometrics. I got the new sponsor. My husband is to write a letter stating that he don't pay tax because he's a retired disabled veteran. He refuses to write the letter. So that's more complex, and it really, if he's refusing to write the letter, he's a petitioner, and I mean, he needs to be there for you. If he's a petitioner and he's refusing to write a letter, then he needs to be prepared for further complications if he's not going to cooperate with his own process. If he is doing this to get back at you, or he's mistreating you in any way, and you're the immigrant spouse, you can always get in touch with me, and we can talk about why he's refusing to cooperate with the process that's going to get his spouse status. And if there's any mistreatment there, we can pursue VAWA. So there may be a solution for you, but go ahead and protect yourself, get legal advice. You can always call the office, schedule the appointment. What would be the reasons you get denied? If you're talking about VAWA, the reasons to be denied for VAWA, it's really going to come down to, did you miss one of the requirements for VAWA? Did you miss showing good faith marriage? Did you not show sufficiently the mistreatment? Did you not live up to the standard of good moral character? Those could be the reasons for a denial. Can you be successful in filing VAWA in a short marriage? Absolutely. You can be married for one day and end up leaving, and you can file for VAWA. If this mistreatment happened to you, it doesn't matter how long you are married. What I would say is, if this is a short marriage, though, you want to take action very quickly, because there's something called annulment. If the other spouse really wants to throw a wrench in your situation, they can file annulment, which means that the marriage never happened. If they file an annulment and they're successful, then that means that you can't qualify for VAWA again. So in a case where it's a short marriage, go ahead and make sure you protect your interests. I'm here for you. Give me a call, schedule a consultation, and we can talk. Go to the link in the profile, and you'll be able to see everything you need to get in touch. If some mistreatment, he uses my status against me, give me a call, schedule an appointment. We can get started right now. I just need to confirm you meet the requirements, and we can get started on VAWA. Now, the thing about this is, if you are in the middle of a process, guess what? You can take this process and switch it over to your own process right now. You can do that. And if you don't trust your spouse to go through the process with you because you're afraid they're going to sabotage you like this, and I've seen it before, you can switch. And it's urgent at that point that you switch it over before that person, that spouse does something. Because I have seen where the spouse has called immigration or they've written immigration and they have withdrawn their application without the immigrant spouse knowing. And so they end up having to apply for VAWA anyway, except it's a lot more stressful, right? Because they get a letter saying they have to leave the country within 33 days. And, it's very stressful seeing that the government is telling you to do that. So if you can avoid getting to a denial because the spouse is sabotaging you, do that, and VAWA is the way here. So give me a call. This is exactly what I do. If someone's petitioned for her undocumented daughter and she done the biometric 3 months now, how long before she gets an answer? So it depends on what the situation is. It's hard to give you an estimate on that. So I don't trust him. How do I make the transition? Go ahead and give us a call. We can represent you and make that transition for you. My spouse called on me. He didn't have any luck though. So I'm not sure. Oh, he called on you. Okay, so he did call on you. Right. And if you have VAWA, you're protected. So if they call immigration on you, right now they're really not prioritizing law-abiding undocumented immigrants. They're not prioritizing detaining individuals like that. So while calling can lead to miserable circumstances for you, you want to make sure that you protect yourself with VAWA as well, because when you have VAWA pending and they call, they can't take the information that that person gave to the spouse, the abusive spouse gave to immigration. They can't use it against you. Exactly. So he tried to call immigration because he couldn't have his way. This situation here qualifies for VAWA, right? If they do things like this to try to get you to do what they want you to do, threaten to call ICE, threaten to call immigration, withdraw your petition, your marriage-based petition, that qualifies for VAWA. So I have one more question and then I'm heading out. If you filed for VAWA before you got work permit, but case was closed because of not enough evidence, can you file for VAWA again if married again? Unfortunately not. So thanks for raising that question. But once you get married, you lose your chance. You get remarried. You divorce and get remarried. You cannot apply for VAWA again. So don't get remarried, right? If you are looking at the possibility of getting your green card through VAWA, don't get remarried. And don't get remarried until you get a decision on the VAWA, or you will get denied, right? Because remarriage will disqualify you. All right, so go ahead, give me a call, schedule an appointment. I'll be more than happy to help you. The link in the description of the video on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, it's all there to get in touch. On Instagram, link in profile. Click on the link. You'll see the link tree with all the different links, resources, a link directly to schedule your own consultation with me, a link to the website if you want to learn more about me and talk to staff members and call the office or submit your contact form so we can get in touch with you. It's all there. Really easy to get in touch. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. I will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend. In the meantime, as usual, I'll release videos that I think will be of interest to you. So you can always follow me, like, subscribe on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch. Go ahead, follow me so that you can go ahead and get that information as I release short clips. And on Instagram, go ahead, follow me if you're not. And have a good weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.